Hey everyone, Jeff here again for RhinoCo Technology. In this video, I'm going to be introducing you to the range of ENSA Intelligent Energy Saving Switches. Now, as the name suggests, these are devices that are designed to automatically switch on and off AC mains loads in order to save energy. Those loads are typically fans or lights, but really they could be any load so long as they don't exceed the current carrying capacity of the switch. Now within this range, there are actually two different sets of devices. So the first lot of devices are our light sensitive devices, or our light sensitive switches. These are often referred to as dusk till dawn switches, daylight sensors. Essentially, really these devices turn on, the switch turns on when it gets dark, and they turn off when it gets light. Think of something like a street light, for instance. You want the street light to turn on when it gets dark, and you want it to turn off at dawn. So that's the first set of switches. The second set of devices are actually motion sensitive switches. Okay, so what they do is they detect motion. On motion, they turn the switch on, they turn the load on. And after a set period of time with no motion, they turn the switch off. These devices also have light sensors built in. So what they can actually do is they can say, if it's light, it doesn't matter whether there's motion, we're not going to turn the switch on. But when it's dark, we'll turn the switch on when there's motion. You can decide whether or not to enable the light sensor on the motion sensitive switches. Now, within the motion sensitive switch range, there are actually two different styles of sensor, motion sensor. The first one is our microwave style of motion sensor. Now, these devices transmit a microwave signal, and then they look for that signal coming back, and they look for something called Doppler shift within that signal to detect motion. So these are active devices. They are transmitting a signal out and then receiving the signal back and determining from that whether or not there's motion. In comparison to that, we actually have PIRs, okay? So PIRs, or passive infrared sensors, are the other style of detector. These ones, as the name suggests, are passive. What they look for is infrared radiation coming from a hot body moving across a cold background, okay? So typically what we're talking about is the heat from either a human or a car or something like that coming from a cold-ish background. Now, why do we carry both different styles of sensors? Well, they both have their own advantages and disadvantages. So what are the practical differences between microwave and passive infrared sensor technologies, and how should you choose between them? Well, it really comes down to two things. The first of which is sensitivity. All other things being equal, microwave sensors are considerably more sensitive to motion when compared to passive infrared sensors. Now, this can be good or bad depending on your situation. So it could be good, for instance, if you've got somewhere where there's not a great deal of motion, but you need to keep the lights on, even with only small amounts of motion. So imagine you're placing it in a bathroom, for instance. You don't want the poor person that's sitting on the toilet having to wave their arms around trying to trigger the sensor. You want it just to go off with any small amount of motion. You want to keep the lights on. However, in a situation outside, for instance, let's say you're mounting the sensor outside and you don't want it to trigger based off small amounts of motion. So say from bugs or from small animals or from rain or from trees and things waving in the distance. Microwave sensors will trigger on all of these things, okay? So they're just generally much more sensitive, and that's what you've got to watch out for and make that decision. So the second thing that we need to consider is sensor penetration, or sensor range. What do I mean by that? Well, recall that when we were talking about our microwave-based motion sensors, we said that they send out a microwave transmission and they look for the return from that microwave transmission to determine whether or not there's motion. Consider for a minute that the microwave range is also where Wi-Fi sits, and you know that Wi-Fi will go through thin walls and different styles of material. Obviously, you can infer from that then that this motion sensor here will actually detect motion through walls, through glass, through wood, through plastic, through plasterboard. This can be good or it can be bad depending upon your situation. It could be good if you wanted to mount a sensor inside a building and you wanted to trigger when there was motion outside the building. So let's say, for instance, you mounted a sensor on an internal light and you wanted that light to turn on to make it look like someone was home as someone approached the outside of the building. That's a really interesting and really cool use case for that, and it's something I've done myself. However, it could also be bad in a situation where, let's say, you've got a closet or something like that, and a hallway outside the closet, and you have just a standard wooden door between those two. What you're going to find is going to happen is that regardless of whether or not anyone actually comes in that door, that light's going to be turning on and off, or the sensor's going to be turning the light on and off constantly as people walk past the hallway outside, because to the motion sensor, to the microwave-based motion sensor, it's just looking straight through that door, okay? So that's a situation where you might, instead of going to a microwave sensor, you might consider a passive infrared-based sensor for something like that. Okay, so then that way the passive infrared sensor is going to read the temperature off the insides of the walls, compare that to the body operating or body moving or device or piece of machinery or whatever it is moving past it, and that's what's going to do the trigger. Okay, so it won't look through walls, which is probably good in that scenario. Okay, let's jump across to a PC and we'll go over some individual products. So here we have the intelligent motion sensor and dusk till dawn switches. You can see the whole range here, and we're going to be going over the dusk till dawn switches first. So let's jump into it. So the first product that we have is the ENSA LC1W. This is a light control sensor or a dusk till dawn switch, as mentioned. It has an adjustable daylight sensor, okay, so 5 to 50 lux, meaning we can set it to turn on with as little as 5 lux on the sensor or as much as 50 lux on the sensor. What this basically means is we could turn on earlier in the night, so maybe we want to turn on at 5 p.m. at 50 lux, or maybe we want to turn on at 6 p.m. when we only have 5 lux, obviously depending on the amount of sunlight around and the time of year. We are IP65 weather resistant and ready for outdoor installation, and we have a 3-year warranty. So let's jump across to the other camera and I will show you the device itself. So here we have it. Here is the daylight sensor and the mounting clip for the device. So it comes as 2 pieces. Okay, so you can see on the base here we have glands and a little slot for this bracket to mount. I won't put it in there now, but essentially it slides in and then you can affix this device to whatever you need to with the included screws that come in the base. But like I said, so these are the glands here, and obviously this means the top part here is actually where we are detecting light. This is designed to go above the light that you're measuring, okay? Above the light that you're turning on, I should say. So don't place this device below the light. What will happen is the light will turn on, and then it's going to increase the lux level detected by this unit, which will turn the light off, and it'll just cycle. But anyway, let's take a quick look inside of it. So this is where we're going to be setting the lux level that I mentioned earlier. So just 3 Phillips head screws on the base. And this is also where the water resistance comes from. There's actually a little seal around the inside lip here. Okay, so that's where our IP65 weather resistance comes in. So this is our load connection. Just in here, you can see, hopefully, you can see our load connection here. So we have our active, our switched active, and our neutral, I should say. So active here, our live, our neutral, and then our switched active here with the load on the side. And we have our lux level adjustment on this side here, okay? So from 5 lux on this side to 50 lux on the other side here. So the next product that we're going to look at is another light sensor or another dusk till dawn sensor. However, this one's a little bit special. Okay, so this is, we call it the corded light control sensor, or the ENSA LC3. The difference here is that this guy is actually designed to fit inside a regular DIN rail mount on a switchboard, or a little, some sort of box that can hold DIN rail mount equipment, like, you know, where your circuit breakers would normally fit. Okay, so as I mentioned, so we're adjustable this time from 2 lux to 100 lux, so we have a bit more of an adjustment range with this particular device, but essentially, I'll show you in a moment, but this sensor here, okay, this coiled up sensor, this actually fits, it's designed to pop out of the top of a switchboard, okay? And this unit here sits inside the switchboard and you wire through it, okay? So you come across from your RCBO or just circuit breaker, run into this, and then back out to the rest of your lighting circuit. So it's really easy to control an entire lighting circuit without having to break anything up or mount anything at the light. You just open up the switchboard, wire this guy in, poke this sensor out the top, and you are done. So let's take a quick look at this one. Okay, so This is the device in question, okay, the ENSA LC3. As you can see, we have our sensor here, okay, on a 95 centimeter cable, okay. So you can kind of probably see in the top there, this is there's a little LDR in there if the camera wants to focus, but that's fine. So there's an LDR that's sitting in the top of that device there, and that simply screws, you can see this little screw piece here. So you unscrew that the whole way down, you drill a, I think it's an 8mm hole into your switchboard, and then slide this in. Okay, so probably don't do it in the top of the switchboard, do it in the side. It'll still pick up sunlight just fine, or lux levels just fine, and then that'll help with your waterproofing and stuff. But it really makes it easier to control an entire lighting circuit without having to worry about fooling around with putting sensors on individual lights, or having to, you know, pull a wire out for a separate sensor. So as I mentioned, this device is DIN rail mount. Okay, so you can see the DIN rail clips on the back. In fact, as a comparison, here is a 20 amp RCBO, and you can see, this actually goes this way around, but you can see the similarity there. You can see the DIN rail mount on the back of the RCBO and how it lines up just fine with this light sensor with the LC3. And from the front, you can see obviously that they line up just fine. From the front of there too, you can see some status LEDs on the side, lets you know that it's powered and whether or not the load is powered. You can also see our load, so our active in, our neutral in, and then our neutral out to our load, and our switched active here. And on the base, obviously this is where our sensor wires in. As you can see, it's already pre-wired. Our adjustment on the top here, we have our essentially 2 lux down this end, okay, and 100 lux up this side. So depending on how that's adjusted, we can cut in at 2 lux or 100 lux. But yeah, it's really, it's pretty unique out there. You don't see these around very much. Quite often will you see, this style, obviously our ENSA LC1W style, but very rarely will you see this style of light sensor. So it's quite unique and can save you a lot of time during installation. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our movement sensor based switches. Now we're going to do the first two as a pair because as you can see, they look identical. The only differences between these two devices, in fact, is that the ENSA MS6 that I have in my left hand here is actually a microwave based device, and the PS1 that I have in my right hand is a PIR based sensor, passive infrared based sensor. So the same form factor, but just different sensing technologies between the two. These devices are really good from a positioning point of view because you can actually tilt the device back and forth, okay, whilst also tilting it up and down. So you've got 2 degrees of freedom there, in addition to obviously being able to mount it wherever you want to on the wall. So let's jump across to the data sheets for these two devices. And here we go. So this is the ENSA MS6. This is the microwave based device, okay, and as I mentioned before, microwave based, it has a daylight sensor inside. As I mentioned, all of our motion sensors also have daylight sensors. And we can configure 3 different things on this device. So we can configure the lux level that it turns on at. So we can set it all the way down to 3 lux, or we can have it up as high as 2000 lux. Now we've set it up this high, up to 2000 lux, so we just basically turn it up the whole way if we wanted it to run during the daytime, okay? In addition to that, we have our motion sensitivity on this microwave-based sensor version. We can adjust how sensitive this device is, whether we are sensitive to 5 meters or sensitive to 15 meters of distance. The third thing that we can change is our on timer, okay? So how long the device runs for once it stops detecting motion, okay? So if we don't detect motion for 3 seconds, we will turn off at 3 seconds, or we don't detect motion for 12 minutes, we'll turn off. If we get a detection within this period, okay, so let's say I had it set to 1 minute and I got a detection at 50 seconds, we would reset again and we would start counting again up to 1 minute, okay? As you can see, our detection range is a 180-degree arc, so it's a very wide detection range. You know, you can probably see from the shape of this sensor that it's going to be detecting the whole way around it. And our sensor range is 5 to 15 meters adjustable, as we mounted before. Again, it is a wall mount device, angle adjustable, and it's IP65 rated for outdoor use with a 3-year warranty. Let's jump across to the PS1 while we're here. So as you can see, PS1 is very similar. Again, you've got daylight sensitivity. Your motion sensitivity is actually not adjustable. It's fixed at 12 meters. And your on timer, you have the ability of setting between 10 seconds and 7 minutes. Okay, so again, 10 seconds, no motion for 10 seconds, I'm going to turn off, or no motion for 7 minutes, and I'm going to turn off. Again, 180-degree arc of motion sensitivity, so it's sensitive the whole way around the outside of the lens there, with a 12-meter radius passive infrared detection. So 12 meters from the sensor in a 180-degree arc. Again, it's wall mount adjustable with IP65 rated for outdoor use and a 3-year warranty. So let's take a look at these two sensors up close. Again, you can see this one in my hand here is the microwave-based sensor, which is why it has additional adjustments on it, and the one in my left hand is our PIR-based sensor. So just to look a little bit more closely so that you can see the base of these two devices. Again, in the PIR-based sensor, you can see that we have our lux level adjustment here. So at what lux level we turn on, with the little sun icon down here, meaning that we're going to turn on all the time, okay, regardless of whether or not, like, we're just going to turn off the lux sensor essentially and just operate on motion sensing only. And our time sensor here, as I mentioned, how long we're going to wait before we turn off after not seeing motion. And again, jumping across to the microwave sensor, you'll see the same thing, our lux level, our time level, but we also have a sensitivity adjustment. So we would be sensitive to 5 meters down this edge here, or sensitive all the way up to 15 meters here. And it's a semicircle around the device, if you like. So it's 180 degrees around each one of these devices. So you can see in the rear, the cable entry points. I'll just put this guy aside for now. But you can see in the rear here, the cable entry points here, these two glands. Okay, so you have an in and an out. One mains in and out to your sensor, which makes it easier to install. And I'll just take off this flat plate on the back here so that you can see how you would mount the device. Okay, so you take the screw out, and then you, using a flathead screwdriver, unclip the back. Whoops. Unclip the back of the device like so. And again, obviously you can see our cable entry, the other side of our cable entry on here. But in here you will see, again, we have our active, our neutral, and our switched active. Okay, it's active, neutral, switched active, and we can run in and out of both our glands, and you see the waterproofing material around here. Again, you can see we are sealed using a gland, or a seal around the outside, I should say. So as long as our cable fits in our glands properly and our seal is tight, then we are IP65 rated. Okay, so let's jump across to our next motion sensor now. So the next one is a microwave-based motion sensor, the ENSA MS2. So let's jump across to its data sheet. So this is a ceiling mount microwave sensor, ENSA MS2, and again, as mentioned, like the other devices, we have a daylight sensor, a motion sensor, and our on timer. And you can see based off this image here how it mounts, but I'm going to show you that in a moment anyway. Again, automatically activate and deactivate for lighting energy efficiency, adjustable sensors, so 2 to 2000 lux we can adjust here. And again, remember, we can turn off our sensor altogether if we turn just slightly past our 2000 lux mark. We are motion sensitive up to from a 1 to 8 meter radius, depending on our adjustment. And we have an on timer of 10 seconds to 12 minutes. So again, 10 seconds with no motion, we will turn off, or 12 minutes with no motion, we will turn off. It's a 360-degree circle, i.e. it's designed to be mounted on the ceiling looking down, and you have a 1 to 8 meter diameter microwave detection range. Okay, circular ceiling mount for indoor use only. This unit is not IP rated. Okay, but again, we have our 3-year warranty. Okay, so let's look back again. So this is the device in question. As you can see, it is designed to be mounted on the ceiling, as we mentioned. 2 cable entry points at the rear here, and the cover just slides off. Okay, so we can just twist it to the left like so, and we remove the cover from the device, exposing the mounting holes. Okay, so we have our mounting hole in the front here and another mounting hole over the back. Again, you can see our cable entries just here and here, and our connection points. So we have an active, oops, sorry, that's actually our neutral in. So we have a neutral here. We have a second neutral to go off to our load. We have an active, our main active over on this side, and we have our switched active in the middle here. So the idea would be that you'd wire your neutral in to here, and your live in to here, or your active into here, and then your neutral out to your load, and your switched active out to your load through the center. If you take a look again at the lux level, or the sensitivity adjustments and things that we have on this device here, you can hopefully just see. We have our lux level adjustment here. We have our sensitivity adjustment and our time period adjustment there. And you can probably see that's actually our light sensor just there next to our green LED, indicating that the device is on, or the device is active. Okay, so that's our ENSA MS2, our ceiling mount microwave motion sensor. Now I'm going to do these two together as well, because they are actually very similar devices. The main difference between these two devices, okay, so this is the ENSA PS4 and the ENSA PS2. The difference between these two devices is mainly the lens, okay? So these are passive infrared based sensors, not microwave based sensors. Okay, so this particular device here, the PS4, has a much wider beam pattern, will detect the whole way around the device, 360 degrees around the device, whereas this unit here, the ENSA PS2, is actually designed for hallways. So let's take a look at the data sheets. This is the ENSA PS4, and as you can see, 360 degree ceiling mounted PIR motion activated switch. Okay, as we mentioned before, we have like our other products, we have a daylight sensor built in, and the motion sensor and the on timer. Again, we're adjustable from 3 to 2000 lux with the ability to turn it off. We can adjust our on timer from 10 seconds up to 30 minutes this time, so we can actually make this time much longer. 360 degree beam detection angle, as you would expect based off this particular lens. You can kind of see it. I'll actually show you the differences between this lens and the hallway lens that's on the ENSA PS2. And at 20 meter microwave detection range. Obviously it depends a little bit on the height, or the mounted height of this sensor. You can expect that this will detect from quite some distance away. Now let's look at the PS2 for some comparison. So again, we have 3 to 2000 lux. This time, instead of having a 20 meter round detection range, we actually have a 4 meters by 20 meters square, okay, or a rectangle. 4 meter by 20 meter rectangle, same on timer, and it's a 360 degree, again, PIR, ceiling mount, and for indoor use only. In comparison to the PS4, I should say, PS4 is actually rated for outdoor use, whereas the PS2 is indoor use only. So let's take a look at the devices. So this is the two devices here. So this is our PS4 on this side, and as mentioned, this one's actually IP rated. Okay, you can see that we have our cable entries here and our gland around the outside, and we actually have a cover that covers the mains connections here. When we compare that to our PS2, which is designed only for indoor use, you'll note that we do not have any of that going on. Again, as I noted, you can see the differences in the lens. Okay, so this is the hallway lens on the ENSA PS2. It's got much more detection range in this direction than it does in this direction. Okay, so in this direction, it's quite narrow. It's 4 meters in this direction, but 20 meter detection range in this direction. As you can see, again, on the PS2, you can see where our wiring points are. So again, we have our active, our neutral, and our switched active, okay? And like I said, there's no weather sealing or anything on the back here. It's designed purely for use indoors. So to adjust sensitivity on these devices and to mount them, we actually need to place a screwdriver in the edge here and release the clips. Like so. And then we can remove the cover, and then you can see our mounting holes. Now, this is actually interesting because at the same time it does actually show us where our maximum distances are. So a maximum of 20 meters in that direction, as we could see before, a maximum of 4 meters in that direction from our sensitivity point of view. We have our time adjustments here and our lux level adjustment here. Again, with 3 lux down that bottom there, or quite low on that side, and going up to 2000 lux or on, completely on with that little sun dial that's there. And again, like I said, mounting holes on the side. So the PS4 is pretty much identical to that, which open, with the exception of obviously the markings, because this guy's 20 meters the whole way around. Okay, but we have our mounting holes, and we have our time adjustment and our lux level here. Okay, exactly the same as on the PS2. Okay, so the next sensor that we have is another microwave sensor. This one's the ENSA MS1, and as you can see, it's tiny in comparison, okay, to our other sensors, which makes it really cool because you can actually conceal it in inside other products. Okay, so you can hide them in lights, for instance. And I'll show you that in a moment. But yeah, this is our next sensor. So let's jump across to a PC, and we can see the data sheet for it here. So like I said before, ENSA MS1. So this is again, it has daylight sensor, motion sensor, on-time light. This one again has a daylight sensor built in. It doesn't have as wide of a radiation pattern or as wide as a detection pattern, but it still goes up to 8 meters. Okay, so 2 to 8 meter detection range, or detection diameter, I should say. On time, 5 seconds to 10 minutes. Yeah, and it's a 360-degree circle with a 2 to 8 meter microwave detection range. Designed for inline installation with lighting for indoor use only, with a 3-year warranty. So again, as you can see, it's so small that you can fit it inside other light fittings, okay? So you can use it to retrofit in existing lights. So an oyster light, for instance, oyster lights are really easy to fit this sort of device inside because you've got such a large bubble. So what you can do, now this oyster light's a particularly bad example, but because it's already got a sensor built in and it's already an LED device, but typically if you've got a standard globe style oyster light, there's heaps of room for you to mount this sensor inside, and then you can turn a regular light fitting into a sensor light fitting, and that can be of great advantage not only for energy saving but also for security, because if you mount these microwave sensors on lights that are in, let's say in rooms which are close to doors and walkways and things like that, if anyone moves outside the building, they're going to turn on. Okay, so it looks like someone's turning on lights inside the building. Okay, so I'll just show you this sensor under our other camera now, just so I can show you just how diminutive it is in comparison to some of our other sensors. So to give you an example, this is our other standard, which one was this? ENSA MS2 microwave sensor. And you can see just how much smaller the MS1 is and how easy it makes it to fit inside light fittings like the oyster light that I showed you previously. Now there's a couple of differences on this device versus the other ones that you've seen so far. So again, this is designed to be used in another enclosure, to be hidden in another enclosure, so there's not really much covering for the cable entry and exit points. And this unit is actually programmed by a dip switch here, okay? Instead of having the potentiometers that the other devices had, so the screw adjustment, this one here is instead designed to be programmed by a dip switch, which gives you, it's less granular with regard to your sensitivity, time, and lux adjustment, but it's still quite easy. Okay, so you've got your 2 sensors, or 2 dip switches there for your lux adjustment, or your sensitivity adjustment, I should say. Your 3 dip switches there for your time adjustment, and your 3 dip switches there for your lux level. The final sensor that we have is the ENSA PS3. Now this is our smallest, we're finishing on the two small products here, but this is our smallest passive infrared based sensor, okay, a PIR based sensor. Now this is actually a recess mount ceiling sensor, and we'll jump across to the data sheet now. So this is the ENSA PS3, again, similar sort of specs as we've had the whole way through, so 3 to 2000 lux. This has got a 6 meter radius detection, okay, on timer at 10 seconds to 15 minutes. Again, 6 meter, sorry, it's not 6 meter radius, 6 meter diameter detection, 360-degree circle, 6 meters in diameter. Again, recessed ceiling mounted for indoor use only. And again, a 3-year warranty. So let's take a look. Okay, so the ENSA PS3, now you can see, obviously this unit here is pretty diminutive. Okay, it's the smallest, like I said, the smallest passive infrared based sensor that we have, and it's our only ceiling mount, recessed ceiling mount option, okay? You can see from these springs here how it holds into the plasterboard ceiling. So you fold the spring clips back like so, and you slide it inside your cutout hole. And I believe the cutout is roughly 30 millimeters in diameter, the cutout that's required. So you slide that up into the cutout that you have, and then the clips pin it down and hold the unit inside your ceiling. Just to go over the cable entry points at the back here. So we have our active, our switch active, and our neutral on here. And we have obviously our screw terminals on this side. Adjustment for this particular device is all done via the lens on the base here, which actually makes it good because it means you can mount it and then you can still adjust it afterwards just by taking this cover off. But you can see we have our PIR sensor here and our light sensor next to it, but we have our lux level and time adjustment on the side here, okay? So again, we are a screw adjustment on here, no dip switches, but we are a screw adjustment, and we have complete adjustment from 10 seconds to 15 minutes on this screw here. So there's your introduction to the ENSA Intelligent Energy Saving Switch range. They really help you increase security, and they help you amplify your energy savings over and above just switching to energy efficient lighting. If you like this video, feel free to click that like button down below. If you enjoy these sorts of videos or find them useful, feel free to click that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Thanks for watching.